evening and welcome to another edition of the FTTC podcast, sponsored by The Junk Trunk. Throw your old furniture, clothes, and your fantasy hopes and dreams right in our boot. We are your home for breaking news and breaking balls in the fantasy sports world. From touchdowns to tailgates, we've got it all covered with a dash of witty banter. I'm your host, Jason Stankiewicz, and I'm joined here today by the new man of matrimony, the FTTC's resident musical expert, Mr. Trevor Kinsey. Trev, how we doing?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
I'm good, man. We are so happy to have you on the show. Wasn't sure, when you'd be back from the nice little extended honeymoon, but glad we kept you before the draft and get some thoughts from you.
Absolutely. It was a nice little sabbatical, but I am back in the New York groove, as Billy and I like to say, and I'm ready for another season. Get started.
All right, man. Well, let's jump right into last season, go through a little recap. So you finished 7-7, and yep. I had it as the first time you missed the playoffs, which is
Jazz, I wasn't sure if you were going to mention that. I'm honored. I'm honored that you remembered. Yep.
That's pretty impressive, man. I mean,
thank you.
And honestly, your consistency, too. Like, I had you sixth. Let's see what I had you. I had you second, sixth, fifth before that.
Yeah. It always seemed like I was like the fifth seed or the sixth seed. I know I snuck into the championship against you 2 years ago as like the sixth seed or something. I really dogged my way through the playoffs and then just got smoked by you. But that was the closest I've come to glory, and last year was the furthest I've come, and hoping to bounce back, to say the least.
Yeah,
I'm in 4 different leagues this year, so this one is the focus, I will say, and all others take a back seat, take a far back seat, back in the bus back seat. But yeah, this one is definitely takes the cake in competitiveness and how much joy it brings me to beat every one of you.
I think, we like to have fun at the FTTC, but
yes, we do.
Looking back at your draft last year, you had Cooper Kupp with your first pick, and honestly, losing him is probably where things turned down.
Oh, yeah.
Or things took a downturn for you.
Uh-huh.
Do you think there's anything you could have done you think there's anything you could have done to mitigate that?
I'm sure we'll get to the trade, but that was the only move I felt like I could make. Was after he went down, I had to sell Josh Allen for whatever I could get. I remember I drafted J.K. Dobbins too when he was just absolute nightmare. I think he was my maybe first or second running back off the board. And so
you had Leonard Fournette in the second, you had Chase Edmonds in the fourth, and Dobbins in the fifth.
Oh, okay, never mind. Good call. But yeah, I really relied on him to be like that third back during bye weeks and everything. He just was non-existent, I remember. And then I think I just kept him on my bench the whole season. And I was like, oh, he's gonna maybe get me into the playoffs if he comes back, but it just never happened. And I don't know if there was many other moves I could have made. It just seemed like last year I was standing on 2 different pillars, and that was Allen and Kupp. And then everything else was just like it was a bonus. It was a cherry on top if another player blew up. Fournette was okay. He's definitely fallen off in ADP this year, so I don't know. It's going to be a whole different team, and I don't really know my strategy at 12. In fact, I didn't even realize I was 12 until yesterday. And so now I'm like, what do I do? So it's going to be interesting. I don't think I've ever drafted that late in the first round.
Yeah.
So
we'll get some thoughts on it a little bit later, but I want to touch on one last thing related to last season, and then we'll move on to another segment. But obviously a little contentious around the end. Roadrunners Naz took down the Disasters in the championship, 2-point margin. And obviously the controversy was the Disasters had Joe Mixon going, and he ended up with no points due to the DeMar Hamlin injury. There's been some speculation in the media that Roadrunners Naz, and the Naz group in particular, was back channeling funds to the commissioner. Any comment on that?
I haven't got that one bit, given his recent behavior in the league these past 2 seasons. There's something shady going on at the top, I will say, and I'm not the first to vocalize that. So I'm really happy that this is sort of like almost a true crime podcast. We're like shining some light on the dark areas of this league that need to be shown on. So yeah, I would agree. I think something shady is there, and
There's quite a few rumors floating around the commissioner, and we'll address a couple a little bit later on as well. But let's move on to your off-season training regimen.
Yeah.
You're one of the most consistent performers in the league, as we mentioned, missing the playoffs for the first time last year. So 4 out of 5 years nailing the playoffs.
Yeah.
What's been your off-season focus? Do you think has helped achieve that consistency?
Oh man, that's a great question. So I just try to not make mistakes in the draft, but it seems like I just only make mistakes in the draft. I remember I drafted Greg Olson. Wait, okay, let's step back. My first year in the league, I drafted Le'Veon Bell, who famously sat out the whole season, and I drafted Greg Olson in like the 4th round, maybe
5th round.
5th round. Okay, thank God. 5th round, and that was like. It was a terrible, first impression to the league. It was just like, maybe actually, in hindsight, it was like a wolf in sheep's clothing type of moment where I was like, I just showed a big folly and everyone thought like, oh, this dude's an absolute idiot when it comes to this stuff. But it just seems like, as I do my draft research and everything, it's just like, don't make a mistake. Just don't draft somebody. Yeah, actually, I'm going to avoid players of decent risk this year, I would say. And that's all I'll say about my draft strategy at 12. But it's I try to get on the Peloton every day to train my mind and body for this league, and I don't even know if that's enough, honestly.
Well, as we mentioned earlier, recently married, went on a honeymoon. First off, congratulations. But secondly, do you feel having officially hired a new assistant coach, your training efficiency will improve?
That's a great question. And in fact, Grace pretty much despises football, but this year she turned to me last week. Actually on our honeymoon, we were on cloud 9. I think it was just, roses were in the lenses and everything. But she turns to me and she goes, this year I would like to pay attention to football and actually follow it. And that after, getting married and everything, that was the third best thing that I had experienced in this month. I was like, holy shit, we can actually watch the Bears together, because it's usually me watching on the laptop, then we have something else on the TV, or it's she's watching Real Housewives of Salt Lake City and I'm watching Monday Night Football. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to have a second opinion in the house, and I'm gonna try my best. I think my goal in the next 5 years, because it's definitely a 5-year plan, because it's not going to happen anytime soon, is to get her to own a fantasy team at one point and to get in the league and actually experience what I experienced, and maybe for once she'll understand and appreciate all the time and effort and all those shotgun beers and all the trash talk, and all the stupid shit. So hopefully she'll one day understand, but I don't expect that anytime soon. But it's nice to have someone else in the corner.
Well, maybe we'll get some feedback from her a little later on in the season. I think we're going to potentially try and do a little Wags podcast if we can. So great. Could get some interesting takes there. But let's move on to the draft. I know you said you're trying to play things pretty close to the vest right now. But we were looking back at your
choice at 12. But
yeah, I mean, we were looking back at your past draft strategy, and I think you generally are pretty consistent. A lot of running backs, a lot of wide receivers. That's to be expected in the first 4 rounds, right? But the one thing that stuck out to me is 3 out of 5 years now you've taken a QB in the first 4 rounds. So is that just a case of you like to have kind of a top-tier quarterback and feel comfortable with that? Or
the last 5 years I did that, because I think I was stuck with a couple stinky QBs in seasons 1 and 2, and I was like, never again. I'm never waiting. So I don't know, at 12, would I be the first person to pick Mahomes off the board? Probably. And that's about as far as I'll go in terms of my first and second pick in the QB this year.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the last 3 of the 5 seasons, it's definitely been a focus. Grab one early and then hope to get a backup. I think Trevor Lawrence from a backup last year. So it's get a viable backup with a lot of upside is the mindset.
But yeah, not a bad strategy at all. Not a bad strategy. 12th pick, it's a tough spot to be, right? Mm-hmm. It's a tough spot to be. You kind of have to play it as it falls to you. But is there a certain player, and you don't have to reveal this, we're not asking for names here, but is there a certain player you have in mind that you're really hoping is there at 12?
I will say I do have a certain player. don't think he'll be there, and I'm almost 90-95% sure he will not be there. But it's possible, and if he actually falls to me, I will be absolutely shocked. But he's like the only one, because I think I'd be dealing with like Diggs, Devontae Adams, Chubb, a couple other RBs like Derrick Henry, Saquon at that point in the draft. Yep. It's probably going to be one of those guys, and it's just going to be who's safest and who's got the most volume in their future, I guess.
I mean, I think
it's going to be tough to wait a long time for pick 3.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that was kind of the other part of it, right? The tough part about the 12th pick, right, is you have that turn, and you really got to nail those 2 picks.
Oh, man, yeah.
Do you think there's a particular strategy to making that back-to-back pick, or is it just kind of you go best player available and hope?
It's a little mix of both. I think towards the start, I'm more best player, and then I see how my roster's shaping up, see how the bye weeks. I try not to let the bye weeks influence too much, but like, if you have both your QBs on the same bye week, it's kind of tough cookies. Sorry, am I allowed for on this podcast?
We will be marking it as explicit. Yes, we've had some people who've gone off.
Not the first one, but no, it's a great question because like waiting those 24 picks before pick 3. There are going to be so many players that I wish I had going in those picks, and so I got to get 1 and 2 right, no matter what. And then being the bookend, I have to see who's ahead of me and who they're picking. It's just, I think everyone in this league does it, and you'd be dumb not to. Is to see who's picking around you and who they're going for next. Anticipate their next need. That's just basic draft strategy. But like, no, I got to get it right. And I don't know if it's gonna. It'd be hilarious if my first 2 picks were like Kelsey and Mahomes, and then it's like, who the fuck do I have next?
That might be all you need, honestly.
That's not a bad backbone. We talk about the 2-pillar system with Allen and Kupp last year. So who knows? But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it because I haven't drafted that late, and I'm gonna be nervous about it, to be frank.
Well, so you mentioned the Greg Olsen pick as being maybe one of the worst picks you've made. Who do you think's making a pick of that quality this year? Who's making the worst pick?
That's a great question. God, it always seems like Mr. Naz is picking somebody way too early. Perhaps like a defense, in like round 9 or something. I'll say Mr. Naz. He's low hanging fruit. Him and I go at it in the comments.
All right, let's get into some other predictions here. 2 just kind of rapid fire, real NFL predictions looking for, and then we'll get some league predictions from you. Which player ends up scoring the most fantasy points, and who do you have in the Super Bowl?
Oh, man. Most fantasy points, it's hard to not go with 1.1 JJ. I would love to see Bijan Robinson be like the GOAT moving forward. Like we don't really have, it's really weird not drafting a running back number 1 overall. Yeah. I will say. That might have been the last 2 seasons, honestly. But actually, maybe Taylor was last season. But yeah, I would love to see Bijan. And then Super Bowl pick, Bears.
Love it. Love it, baby.
Come on. It seems like an easy road to get to the playoffs, more than ever. Well, with the Lions,
the Central, the North should be pretty weak. It should be pretty weak.
Totally. So I will say the road is weak. Looking at the schedule, I was talking to my coworkers today. I'm like, I really love over 7.5 wins on the old FanDuel. Because looking at that schedule, they play the Cardinals, the Panthers, and the Buccaneers. And I think those are like the bottom 3 of the whole entire league. And then you could steal, 2-3 wins from the North. And then there you go. You just need to win a couple more. But
you just got to get there, right? You just got to get there. You never know.
Just got to get there. Yeah. Keep going.
Moving on to some league predictions here. Obviously, you've danced around the title. Is it your turn to take home the title, or you think someone else does?
I would love to. I would love more than anything to take the season title. To feel good going into season. Exactly. I would love that more than winning the playoffs, to be honest with you, because the playoffs are such a crapshoot. Like, you know, I made it there as a 6 seed. I made it to the championship as a 6 seed. So it's just an absolute crapshoot. But I would love to win the regular season more than anything. That's just like, it's got to be so satisfying, right? It's just like,
oh, it definitely is, yeah.
Just cruising in as the number one. I don't like give a shit if I win the championship. It's like double dipping. So yeah, that more than anything.
Okay.
I would love it.
All right.
Would love it.
And let's circle around now. Obviously, I'm sitting in the circle of shame this year, but who do you think's finishing last?
Who hasn't in a while?
So last place finishers, I believe, have been Durante, Schillinger, myself twice, and then there's one more I'm missing.
I would say maybe Timmy P.
Steve.
Timmy P. I know he's not going to like to hear it.
That's a three. But, honestly, three for three today have gone Mr. Spooks finishing last.
Yeah, that's I love it. We're on a bandwagon.
All right, last prediction for you. So obviously outside the circle of shame, right, we have our weekly shotgun punishment. Who's doing the fastest gun and who's doing the most guns?
It seems like the fastest gun is Mr. Prentice these days. And also he's done it awesome. I would say, I mean, you can't forget that hairy rug. So it just like burns in my mind. So I think he did it like 2 or 3 times last season. And he puts it down so fast. Billy's shotgun, I will say, was one of the slowest I've seen, and when he had to like redo it, was probably the best shotgun video we've ever seen in the league. When he's like, he does it, and then he's like, "That's not gonna fly," and he like does it again. That was my favorite, easily. But yeah, no, Prentice puts him down for sure.
Okay. All right, so let's move on to some last segment here. Just a few rumors I want to address. So first of all, owners meeting, commissioner announced he's stepping down in 2040. Yeah. That's about a 30-year reign for him. You know, any thoughts on that?
I think like the Senate and Congress these days, we need an age limit and term limit. So, commish, it's a little too long for my liking. Maybe we keep it to 4 years, 8 years, before however many that was. But yeah.
Okay. The other one, right? A little scandalous. Commissioner Sim with the 1-1. You know, nobody knows if the draft order was legit, if it was rigged. What's your take on it?
I think it's no mystery that he's 1-1, but it's even greater mystery as to why I'm 1-12. I think the commissioner has it out for me.
He might have targeted you. He might have targeted you, you know?
Hey, guys.
Hey, team.
But yeah.
Right, last one for you here. Obviously, you know, Steve has had some controversy around him, Mr. Blazer, and his punishment. Just want to get your thoughts. You know, he did justify himself today, but obviously we want to make sure we get a full comprehensive overview from the league.
I cannot wait to hear his pod. I'm sure it'll be the most listened to by far. But no, I mean, come on. In my opinion, Steven, if you're listening to me, you have the easiest road of redemption. Just do the fucking thing, and you are the league hero. But I also understand how petty he can be, in that he's just like, you know, fuck this league. I'm never going to do it. But I just want to see it. I just want to see him in like a Bulls practice jersey, like getting fucking posterized. So we would all just love to see it. I feel like it would be a huge morale booster more than anything, and it would be like, you know, the best thing we could possibly experience going into this season. So just do it, Steve. Come on.
I totally agree. But anyway, Mr. Kinsey, thank you so much for coming on our podcast, sitting down with us. Best of luck to you in the draft. Best of luck in the upcoming season. Maybe it's the year you take home the title. Who knows?
I hope
but thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. And I hope marriage doesn't slow me down and only furthers me along the fantasy line. And I hope to take home at least one of the titles.
I think I'm feeling it might be your year, but and to to all our FTCC listeners out there, thank you so much for tuning in again, and we look forward to speaking with you soon. Everybody, have a great night.